Good morning. That was the most beautiful introduction that I've ever received before speaking to an audience. I understood very little of it except for my name and Delft. So I'm assuming the rest was accurate and it sounded wonderful. So cybersecurity and the digital transformation. It's a huge topic and we have 30 minutes. So I thought, why don't we try it the other way around? We are going to address your questions rather than me telling you all the things that I'm interested in, because it will be what we call death by PowerPoint. You know, the phenomenon, right? You have these academics on the stage and they just click through 70 slides in 30 minutes. It can be done, but you know, there are more fun ways to spend your time. So I would like to get to the security issues that you are actually experiencing and talk about the questions that surround those. For some of you, the digital transformation makes security an inconvenience because it puts hurdles in the way of your business opportunities. For some of you, it may be a headache. You are already suffering certain threats and attacks, or maybe fraud. And for some of you, it may be still a rather abstract problem. You know it exists, you know it's relevant, but there is no real urgent impact yet on your business. So given that diversity here, let me just give you a few examples of ways in which these issues might impact you, and then hopefully that will get the questions flowing that we can then address together. So if your business is transforming, how does this actually then impact you? A few examples. Very much an ongoing phenomenon, ransomware. Who here is familiar with the term ransomware? Okay, I would say about a quarter or so, which might be good news or not. I'm not sure yet. You know, the classic joke among security researchers is there are two kinds of people. People who have been hacked and people who don't know that they have been hacked. So if you don't know what ransomware is, I'm not sure if that's good news or bad news. Ransomware is very straightforward. A machine in your network gets infected with a virus, and then what the criminal does is it starts encrypting all the files on your hard drive, on your network drives, and basically any files it can discover. It encrypts it with a secret key. And then the next time, once it's done, you access the machine, you will only see one message. Namely, if you ever want to see your files again, transfer X amount of euro or X amount of Bitcoin to this address. And then they will send you, the criminals will send you the secret key, you can unencrypt your files, and you can actually do work again. Now, this has been going on for years. The interesting thing is, these criminals have realized that they should be doing business to business rather than business to consumer. Because, you know, consumers, they might give you 50 euros. If you really, you know, lucky, you might get 100 euros out of them. But businesses, they are sitting ducks. So this hospital, for example, is one of the many hospital, I don't know what you know about hospital ICT security, but let me tell you, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done there. The criminals now, once they have a machine infected, they no longer just encrypt it and give you the ransom message. What they now do is they call back to the criminal command and control server, and they will first try to figure out what the network is that this machine is in. And if they find it's a corporate network, they increase the ransom demand. Okay, now then it starts encrypting. And if they find out they've actually managed to encrypt network drives that are used throughout the whole organization, as in the case of this hospital, so they lost all access to their electronic records because they were encrypted by the criminals. And then, of course, if you're the criminal, you send them a message, you're not going to ask for 50 euros, obviously. You're going to ask for 50,000 euros. And you know what? The hospital will pay in many cases. Why? Well, if you have to solve this problem yourself with your ICT supplier, it will cost much more than 50,000 euros. So these hospitals make a very painful but rather rational business decision. I will pay the criminals. And of course, this incentivizes further innovation on the side of the criminals. Okay, you might think, well, if this happens to me, I will go to the police. Well, the police is also paying ransom to criminals. they have the same shoddy ICT security that many of us have. So that's not going to be much help. A completely different type of thing. TalkTalk is a British telecommunications provider, ISP, and mobile telephony. And they were hacked, and their whole customer database was captured by the criminals. That was very painful for them. They did the classic mistake. At first, they downplayed the impact. Oh, everything's under control. We have no proof that bad things are happening, et cetera, et cetera. And then many of these customers whose information was leaked were actually being ransomed by criminals and being the victims of identity fraud. So criminals started, for example, opening bank accounts or loans with the identity information that they captured here. So then a lot of people got really mad and they left. About 100,000 or so customers left. And as you can see, 60 million pounds, I don't know what the current rate is, but let's say 80 million euros, 90 million euros of damage. One single attack. So let me give you another example. A shipping company like DHL, UPS, there are many of those, they got hacked. And they got hacked by pirates. And I don't mean online pirates, I mean real pirates on the sea. Okay, so we tend to think of those as very low-tech, people in small fishing boats going up to the trailer with a machine gun. And yes, that still happens, but now they have some intel. Before they go onto the ship, they actually know which of the containers have the valuable goods that they are interested in. So even the pirates are innovating in the digital transformation. Then there is another phenomenon also peaking last year. It's called CEO scam. So CEO scam works something like this. Let's say I was brought here by SAP. I hope I'm not insulting them by using them as an example. So if so, I apologize in advance. But let's say I would like to do the SEO scam against SAP. I would look at Bill McDermott's Twitter feed, and I would see that 2 days ago he was at an event celebrating International Women's Day. Wonderful. And then the next day, I will send him an email to bill.mcdermott@sap.com, which is his actual email address. It's not hard to guess. It's not a secret. And I will say, hi, Bill. It was great talking to you at the International Women's Day. Here's the business opportunity that you asked me about. And of course, Bill has no clue who I am or what business opportunity, but he's the CEO. He meets many, many people every day. So he's probably going to take a look at the business opportunity, which is actually placed inside a maliciously formed PDF. All of us use PDFs, and it's ridiculously easy to hack software. And unfortunately, we don't keep up with patching. So I now have access to Bill McDermott's email. Okay, I don't do very much. I read his email. I get a sense of how he communicates with his people. And then on Friday at, let's say, 6:30, I will send an email to his chief person that he goes to if he needs financial transactions to be taken care of. And I will say, hi, Lucy, this is Bill. Can you please transfer immediately 600,000 euros into this account? It's very important for this merger that we're dealing with. You know the details. I will catch up with you on Monday. P.S. Don't call me. I'm in the middle of the meeting. And of course, what Lucy will do is the CEO tells her to transfer money. She transfers money. She's a good soldier. And then, of course, on Monday, Bill says, what the hell are you talking about? And the 600,000, now this sounds like, yeah, but how often is this really going to work? Well, according to the FBI, they've collected all the cases that are known to them, as well as to international law enforcement agencies that they work with, and last year it was $1.2 billion of only this form of scam. And to put it crudely, CEOs are sitting ducks, right? They're very hard to secure because these people, their business is to interact with people. You cannot put them in a bunker, turn off their BlackBerry or whatever the hell they're using, and tell them, don't open any attachments. That's not a way to run a business. So the vulnerabilities that are being exploited are very much ingrained, intrinsic to how we use these technologies. Even if you don't get hacked by criminals, there may be other incidents that you're suffering, such as the exposure of your equipment in a very embarrassing way. Here is an output from Shodan. Shodan is basically Google for the Internet of Things. So the guy who runs this, he finds very smart ways to make visible devices that are on the internet that should not be on the internet. In this case, a industrial control system in Genoa from the electric hydropower plant. That's not the kind of equipment you want to provide the internet access to, but yeah, here it is. And there are many more. If you're interested, if your organization is in there, type your own IP range into Shodan and let's see what comes up. One of the things, for example, that turns out to show up very often is corporate voice over IP systems. Just ask your security people, I would say. So there's a lot of stuff going on, right? It's complicated to do this well. And the short of it is basically that these threats evolve, they adapt to what we are doing. We are taking our business online, and this is also where the criminal innovation is following us. So we will all be confronted with this. That's not alarmist, that is not, this is not to panic. There's nothing to panic about. It's just to tell you, if you think it's okay, you're probably wrong. There's there are things that are going to happen to all of our businesses. Now, like I said, I don't want to be an alarmist. There are enough alarmist people in the security field, trust me, and they produced often reports like this. This is from a Symantec report, and new malware types, and look, it's an exponential curve. If you ever open a security report or an attack trend report, you will see all of the curves are exponential. It's amazing. Now, of course, this is meant to tell you, oh, things are getting worse, you should buy more of our product. But in reality, what they are measuring is basically the attack activities of criminals, not the success rate of criminals. And the success rate is actually much more modest. In fact, what this is measuring is just a way that criminals have found to evade antivirus solutions. Antivirus solutions rely on fingerprints. If you know what the malicious file looked like, you can fingerprint it, and then the virus scanner will search for that fingerprint on your device. Oh, did the criminals think, if that's the way it works, I will just produce the same malware with 100 million different fingerprints, which you can do. It's you just automate it. So what this is measuring is really the failure of antivirus. What the actual success of these attacks are doing is much more modest. So this is the infection rate over the last year and a half, as measured by Microsoft. These are the best metrics that we currently have available. The black line is the global average, the blue line is Italy, and as you can see, it's not an exponential growth. Okay, so there is like a dynamic equilibrium. In fact, in the previous presentation, somebody mentioned the Red Queen effect. Well, that's basically what we're seeing here. We, as companies, as security researchers and providers, we're not sitting still, right? We're trying to defend ourselves against this, and it sort of works. Yes, still machines get infected. Yes, it's not going away, but it's also not getting exponentially worse. So if you look at the actual damages associated with cybercrime and the digital economy, they're very proportional. So the digital economy is growing, and therefore cybercrime is growing. But they are actually more or less proportional to each other. You can see this very well in the fraud to turnover ratio, right? A lot of you here are looking at this from a business perspective. This is one of the metrics you want to look at. So this is for credit card fraud, for card not present fraud. And what this tells you is it's not getting worse, it's not getting better. What this doesn't show you is that in an absolute sense, yes, losses are increasing, but the transaction volume is increasing at least as fast, which in the end is how you make money. You don't make money by being secure. You make money by growing your business and then keeping the security issues under control. And in fact, as it turns out, if you do it well, and of course financial service providers have been working on this for a long time, you actually tend to be successful. So security is an arms race. You have to constantly invest and adapt. But it's definitely not a lost battle, which is some of the sort of more alarmist stories that you may hear. So how can you then manage it? Well, the short answer is it depends, because every company is different and the complexity of these technologies is so high that every standard recipe is wrong. In fact, if I can have you take one message away from this, is don't treat this as a compliance issue. Don't just say, oh, we have ISO blah, 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 and we have security standards blah, 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 and I've checked all the boxes, and therefore I'm pretty sure I'm okay. No, in fact, all the major breaches of the past years, Target, Office of Personnel Management, JP Morgan Chase, the list is endless, they were all audited and fully compliant with the security regulations that were relevant to them. So that doesn't mean very much. And just to give you an example of how following the standard recipes might fail is, you might think, oh, I will do certification. I will use certification to make sure I get only secure services. Well, in hospitals, for example, this is making things worse. So hospitals buy medical equipment with, for example, Windows running on it. And this has been certified because you cannot use medical equipment in a hospital that is not certified. Then it turns out, of course, that there are security vulnerabilities in that software, and Microsoft releases patches for it. But the hospital cannot install the patches, because as soon as they install the patches, their lawyers will tell them that that these machines are now no longer certified. They would have to go through certification again, which basically means you can no longer use them if you patch them. Of course, that's completely perverse. But this is what the reality of risk management is on the work floor. So finally, what can you do? Obviously, you need some process of risk management in place. I will not go into details there. One key issue that you should consider is, do I need to build this expertise myself, and to what extent can I outsource it? For many smaller companies, for example, I think cloud solutions are much better, because they will never really be able to get the expertise in place to manage this themselves. But of course, if you're larger, you have this decision to make yourself. Two sort of less obvious lessons, I would say, are, first of all, if I audit any of your firms for security vulnerabilities, I will find thousands of things that could potentially be leveraged by attackers. Many more things that you could actually solve. This is normal. The key problem is, how do you prioritize? What issues do you solve first? And what risks do you accept? One way to learn from this, and it's amazing how little businesses actually use this, is to look at where actual incidents are happening at the very low level. So this is really the kind of information that doesn't reach managers, because it's everyday stuff. And that will tell you a lot about where to start investing. The second thing is, you can get a lot, most of your systems, even your own people don't know, and your auditors and ICT suppliers don't know. The complexity of these systems is too high, and nobody really understands them fully. All the different interactions that are in place there are impossible to grasp beforehand. So there is one group of people you can actually recruit for free to tell you more about where your vulnerabilities are. It's hackers. So you might think, well, that doesn't sound so attractive, asking hackers to go after my systems. Yeah, you might want to put some rules in place, but there is a process called responsible disclosure that increasingly businesses are adopting as a way to learn more about the weaknesses in their services. So Dutch banks, for example, have been doing this now for 2 years, and they get strangers from all over the world reporting vulnerabilities in the services and websites of the banks to them directly. Tens of thousands of vulnerabilities each year. Now, many of them are small things that could never really be leveraged for a big attack, but still, they're good to get out of the way. And some things are mind-blowing. They could not imagine that this would be possible, and it turns out it is. And these hackers do the right thing. They don't try to attack you, they will actually inform you about it. And in some cases, they get a reward. So the banks have started paying bounties, as they call it in this world. So you can actually engage this community that potentially would attack you in a very productive way if you do it properly.